Welcome to The Reality Chef. I'm Rosalind Mignona, and I'm going to be cooking up some holiday classics, starting with the turkey and the stuffing. So, both the turkey and the stuffing recipes I'm going to be working on start with a garlic and herb base. This is basically like a multi-herb pesto, but I'm not including any Parmesan cheese or pine nuts. So I'm going to stuff it with basil first. If you can get basil in the winter, great, usually it's available. But if it's not available, just use any woodsy, wintry herb that you want. You can really just mix it up. You can even use dry herbs if you really need to. Next, I've got some rosemary. And the last herb that I'm gonna use today is sage. It's a deliciously wintry, woodsy herb. Okay, so I've still got room in there, so I'm gonna put about 4 to 5 cloves of garlic. Okay, I've got my garlic, 4 to 5 cloves of garlic, and a bunch of herbs in this food processor. Last thing for now I'm gonna add is a nice liberal amount of pepper, and then about 2 teaspoons of sea salt. Okay, so I'm gonna give this a grind and make it a nice puree. Just make sure that you get the garlic cloves cut and chopped so you don't have giant chunks of garlic in there. But this will help. I'm gonna add a nice, quarter cup of olive oil in there and blend it into a smooth puree. Okay, so that makes my base for my stuffing and my turkey. Okay, I'm gonna get going on my stuffing. I'm gonna start by just slicing some Dale bread into little cubes. So I've scooped out the pesto, or the garlic and herb puree, and put it into a bowl. So what I'm gonna do, you don't have to clean this food processor out, but I'm gonna take the last couple pieces of bread and actually make some fine breadcrumbs out of them. So you have the people who argue over liking chunky stuffing or the really smooth, almost creamy stuffing. I find that my recipe kind of compromises and meets everyone in the middle. You've got some smooth parts, but then you got little chunks of bread, and usually it makes everyone happy. So again, don't worry about cleaning out the food processor because the breadcrumbs are just gonna soak up all those last bits of garlic and herbs. So I'm just gonna add these little herbed breadcrumbs to my bowl of cut bread. Now, I'm only making enough stuffing to fill the turkey, and there's 2 ways you can make stuffing. You can either fill the turkey and let it cook inside of the bird, or you can actually just butter a baking dish and prepare the stuffing and put it in the baking dish, and it only takes about 30 to 45 minutes to let that cook up. So the golden rule for my stuffing is basically for every 2 cups of bread and breadcrumbs is 1 egg. So in this case, I've got about 4 cups of breadcrumbs and everything, so I'm gonna be using 2 eggs. That's the base, and then on top of that, you can add your apples, your onions, your whatever else you wanna put in there. So for me today, I'm gonna be using onions, apples, dried cranberries, and then the garlic and herb puree that I already made. I've got 2 medium-sized apples in there already. That's about 1 to 2 cups. And again, that's for my 4 cups of bread. So it just depends on what your family likes. If they like more apples, you can do more. Just kind of eyeball it. Next, I'm going to do the onions. Now, I have both sweet onions and red onions. 2 different types of flavor. The red onions are actually pretty sweet. I'm just gonna cut the ends off and then peel the top layer. I'm gonna add some green onions, just for some color. Green onions have a lighter onion flavor. You can use most of the dark green part, all the way down to just the lightest green. You don't wanna really get the white in there. It's not gonna harm you if you do. So the way I'm gonna do the eggs and the garlic and herb stuffing is 2 eggs, like I said. And I'm going to add probably about 2 tablespoons of my garlic and herb puree. Then give it a good whisk together. And then just pour it in. The last thing I'm going to add is some chicken stock, whether it's a homemade chicken and vegetable broth or a store-bought, which I don't like as much, probably doesn't have as much nourishment in it, but either way, chicken stock, you're going to just eyeball it. It's gonna be about 1 cup, but you just wanna give it a nice moisturization. I hate measuring cinnamon, it's silly. Just drizzle it on. If you like a little bit more pepper, a little bit more salt. One last toss. Okay, I've got my bird here and I'm just going to start stuffing the inside cavity with the stuffing. Make sure that you get all the giblets and parts outside of the inside, and actually put those on the stove and use them to make some stock while you're cooking your turkey. So I think your best bet is gonna be a big spoon to stuff, but sorry, you're gonna have to get your hands dirty. Okay, so I have a little more stuffing than I bargained for, and it's great because I'm going to show you how to actually make it in a baking dish. Obviously, if you're going to make a lot of stuffing or not use it in the bird at all, then you're going to want a big baking dish. But the recipe is basically the same. Just going to pinch myself off some butter and butter the dish. Okay, so in a buttered baking dish, just spoon the rest of your stuffing, or just spoon all your stuffing. I'm just gonna top it with big globs of butter. Okay, I dotted that with some nice big globs of butter, and to top it off, to give it a nice crust, I'm gonna grate a nice layer of Parmesan cheese directly over it. So the only difference with cooking the stuffing in a baking dish and not inside the turkey is that you're only gonna cook it for about 30 to 45 minutes. You don't need to do the whole 3 hours or however long it's gonna take to cook your turkey.